Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer, taking a look at the rescheduled Grade 1 Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. It's Saturday at the Big A. It's a really big card and full of Breeders' Cup preps. This one is a prep for the turf. Race number 4, mile and a half on the turf. $500,000 race. Mike Rebels Romance, last year's Breeders' Cup turf winner, looking to get back on the beam. In his last 2 races, well, we haven't learned too much. He did not run well at all against an international all-star field in Dubai. And then it looked like he was going to fire last time out, and then he clipped heels and lost his rider.
Yeah, I guess there are some questions, at least coming into this race, Dan, as to whether or not he's going to be as good in 2023 as he was in 2022. He was obviously really good last year, winning the Breeders' Cup turf. The second and third finishers from that race are also back in this field. So it's a really, really good race. Beyond those 3 horses, there are some other horses who could be major players in this field.
It's certainly an intriguing race, a couple of up-and-comers as well. We'll throw up the Timeform US Pace Projector. Remember, this is a mile and a half, 3-turn race, and it appears the horses that are expected to be in front after the first half mile, they're outsiders. So High, the 1, Grand Sonata, the 3, Astronaut, the 8. These horses are long shots in here, so they're going to hope this pace is very, very slow and that something happens where the closers don't show up.
Yeah, I don't even know, in the case of So High, who probably will make the lead from his inside draw down, I don't even know if a rated pace could possibly help that horse. He just looks like he's in way over his head here. The pace may not be fast. I'm not sure it matters.
So High did try to set a pace, rated pace in the United Nations 3 starts back, a race that, while a Grade 1, is weaker in quality, certainly than the Joe Hirsch. He had a loose lead that day. He tired very badly from about the 3.5 furlong point home. His last 2 races, situations where he didn't get to the lead and he didn't run very well. He has outrun his odds in the past, but boy, he needs a career best against this group.
It just doesn't seem like he's good enough to beat this field, no matter what kind of trip he pulls. His connections run him in races like this on occasion. I mean, you can go back 2 years ago, Dan. He ran in the Man of War. He actually ran a really good fit that day, just beating a couple of lengths. But again, that was 2 years ago, and he's really done nothing since then that would make you feel like he's going to be able to beat this field.
Number 2 is Warlike Goddess, a mare taking on the boys. She did so last year in this race. She won. She then ran a good third in the Breeders' Cup turf. I think the question that one has to ask is the 2023 version of Warlike Goddess as good as the one we saw last year? She's only raced 3 times. She sure looked good in her seasonal debut at Keeneland, the Bewitch, and you can make an argument that just the circumstances didn't work out for her in the New York. I don't think she ran particularly well, but that was a paceless race. Here she is in the Glens Falls last time out. She got closer to the pace, although she was very rank and headstrong early. It looks like she has a chance in here, Mike, and she's just not going to be able to get it done.
Yeah, not really sure if she has a huge excuse in this race, Dan. Yeah, you're right, though. I mean, she did get very headstrong in the early stages. It took Rosario a while to get her settled, but he eventually did that. She makes the lead in the stretch. She gets run down at the end. This is the first time in her life that she's lost 2 races in a row, Dan. So now she comes into this with something to prove. There are ways to mitigate those last 2 performances, certainly. You could make excuses if you tried really hard. The question is, do you want to make excuses for her at 2-1 against this field?
Grand Sonata, the number 3, kept good company through 2022 and 2023. But couldn't get to the winner's circle. So Todd Pletcher eventually dropped this horse in for an allowance race, second off the lengthy layoff, and Grand Sonata did get it done, albeit with a very nice pace-tracking, ground-saving trip. The hole's going to open up. Grand Sonata bursts on through. Grand Sonata pays 24.
Listen, he got a great trip in this race. He also improved significantly off his seasonal debut. It's a good performance. He's very game to get the job done in this race. He was a good 3-year-old. He wasn't a top 3-year-old on the turf, but he was a good 3-year-old, held his own in some really big races last year, Dan. Boy, it's a question of whether he can go with these horses. It's also, I think, a very valid question. Does he want to go this far?
Getting the turf, getting out in distance really helped Rebels Romance last year, reeling off 5 consecutive victories, 2 against Group 1 competition against stout runners in Germany, and then just destroying the fields in the Breeders' Cup turf with a big late kick. We talked about his 2 starts this year. He never looked comfortable at all in Dubai. He did look comfortable in the Bowling Green. Of course, the rider went off when he clipped heels. So we'll see where he is from a fitness standpoint. It seems these connections can do no wrong.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, listen, I guess that last one is the real worry, just because you didn't really get to find out. It kind of felt like in the Dubai race, really, really strong field or not, it just felt like he just didn't run well at all that day. So that could have opened him up to some questions. And then when they brought him back last time, he didn't get to find out if he still is good. If he is still as good, he's way the horse to beat in here. His form last year was rock solid.
The number 5, Pioneering Spirit, has won 5 of his last 6 starts. Now, the only loss during that span came the one time they stepped him up into graded stakes competition. That was the Grade 1 Sword Dancer, a well-beaten third over a yielding turf course. He bounced back, wheeled back on short notice, cut back in distance for the Bernard Baruch. He's got to work a little bit here to forge by these 2 horses in front of him, but he's just better, and he earned a very respectable 100 buyer.
This was just the right spot for him. Cutting back in distance could have helped, but more than anything else, it was the right kind of field. He got a good trip. He did what he was, at least in my opinion, what he was supposed to do. This horse has gotten really good on the turf. You've already mentioned the Sword Dancer 2 back, Dan. Didn't really have a big excuse in that race. It just felt like that Grade 1 field was too tough for him. This race is tougher than that one. So it kind of feels like he's hard to like in here. If you feel like the yielding turf that day was the excuse, it's probably not going to be for him on Saturday either.
It's been close but no cigar for a long, long time now for the 6 Soldier Rising, who teases at the potential of being a top turf force, second in the Manhattan behind Up to the Mark, who's probably the best 9-10 furlong turf force in the country at the very least. Let's watch his last start. This is the Sword Dancer. And Bolshoi Ballet, the European, was just better than this field. Soldier Rising tries to come around everybody, and Soldier Rising is going to do what Soldier Rising does, and that's get up for second while finding one better.
Yeah, it's kind of a suck-up second here. He's just, he's going to find some late momentum here. It never looks like he's going to win. He does move away from the rest of the field to get second. I think this is the 5th time since he's gotten over here, Dan, that he finished either second or third in a Grade 1 race. He can't win these races, but he does show up and, run his very best in these spots. I suppose he'll do that again. It's your call whether you want to bet him in this kind of a race, because I think he's proven already that he's just not quite good enough to get it done.
Just look at the campaign Stone Age had as a 3-year-old. He raced in Ireland. He raced in England. He raced at Belmont, finishing a very close third in the Belmont Derby. Ran well at Saratoga, only beaten 3 lengths in the Saratoga Derby. Back to Ireland, back to England, back to the States for a second in the Breeders' Cup Turf, then out to Hong Kong. They've given him a lot more time between races this year. He's only had 1 start for Chad Brown. It was the Sword Dancer. He was very keyed up and close to the pace, and I think it was a great fitness builder for this.
That's how I kind of looked at him too. We'll see if it all works out in his favor this time. I mean, I think the one thing that you have to take note of before that Sword Dancer, Danny, got over here, Chad Brown, I think his first breeze for Chad, his first published breeze was mid-July. 5 weeks later, he's running in the Sword Dancer, a Grade 1 going 1.5 miles, and he was part of a pretty solid pace before he got tired. It kind of feels like he really needed that race. He's way better than that based on his 3-year-old form. Personally, I thought he ran really well in the 2 Grade 1s as a 3-year-old over here. I didn't think he got great trips in the Belmont Derby or the Saratoga Derby, and he was good at the Breeders' Cup, even an improved horse that day. He got a great trip in that race and was only second best, but it was a step in the right direction.
The number 8 Astronaut completes the field. He's going to be a big price. He was a huge price in this race last year, and he ran a really good third after being up close. He then took them gate to wire when they let him walk on the lead against Grade 2 competition in the Red Smith. The problem is he's only had 1 race this year. It was back in March. He didn't make the lead. He wasn't effective. So he's going to have to run against this very tough field off of a lengthy layoff.
Yeah, I think they'll try to get forward with him in this race, Dan, and we'll see if that really works for him. I think listen, he's going to be a big price in this race, and if you just feel like taking a shot in here, I guess you could just lean on the fact that he's run twice on this Aqueduct turf course, and they're the 2 best races of his life getting forward, and maybe they'll try that again here. I thought he was hard to like.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the rescheduled Joe Hirsch Turf Classic. You're going back to Stone Age. And again, that last race came off a long layoff. His first race for Chad. We both think he needed it. And he's not some one-run stone closer that's really at the mercy of race and pace luck. I think he's adaptable.
I agree. I think he can get the right trip in this race. That's one of the reasons I like him. Enough questions surrounding the 2 favorites that maybe I just want to take a little bit of a shot against those 2 horses, Dan. I think Stone Age gets the trip in here. I think he improves off of the return second time out for Chad here. I like this horse as a 3-year-old. I'm not done with him yet.
One more chance for Soldier Rising, and maybe I'm just banging my head against the wall with this guy because he teases and he never gets it done. He ran okay last time out. The problem is that the European he's running against on Saturday is probably better than the one that beat him at Saratoga, but I'm expecting his usual good effort. Maybe he'll get something to run at. 7426 for Mike, 6524 for me. Joe Hirsch Turf Classic, Belmont at the Big A on Breeders' Cup Prep Saturday. Good luck.